My guest today is Morris Hayes. Mr. Hayes has played with everyone from Prince, Stevie Wonder, George Clinton, Whitney Houston, Elton John, the list goes on and on. Morris, thank you for being here with us today,
brother.
man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Oh,
Appreciate
happy to
it.
have you. How did you get the gig with Prince?
Well, the condensed version, a band I was playing with in Memphis, Tennessee back in the 80s called Fingerprint was doing a gig at a local spot. Prince was on tour. And, his band came down, and, a bunch of people from the crew came and they saw the band. And one of the things they came down afterwards and they were like, dude, we see a lot of bands that like play our stuff and butcher it, but you guys like play it like we do. And so we ended up talking to like one of the road managers and Mark Brown, who was the bassist in the Revolution and some of those guys. And my band, myself and the lead singer from the group, a guy named Greg Sane, got to audition for a group called Maserati that Mark Brown had that was signed to Paisley Park record label. And so we auditioned and we got the gig on that. Did some work on the Graffiti Bridge movie and played on a track, and that's when Prince heard me play. He'd seen me around, but he hadn't really heard me. Mm-hmm. And he heard me play, and I'd been working as a production assistant for like weeks at the place. And I remember the first time he really said something to me, it was about the session that I played on for the time, and he said, that was a nice solo you did. And I'm like, looking around like, you talking to me? He's like, yeah, you played the solo, right? And I'm like, yeah. He said, yeah, the nice solo. I'm like, well, okay. You never said anything before, so, so it was weird. So what happened was my band, that was the house band in this club, Glam Slam, he was about to go on a Diamonds and Pearls tour, and he had Carmen Electra as the opening act, and I was her MD. And so on the road, opening for him, Carmen, he would talk to Carmen, tell him like, yeah, I like Morris, and she'd be like, yeah, Prince is digging you. He says he's gonna get you in his band, and Maite to dance for Sinners. I'm like, get out of here, man.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna happen, man. And sure enough, when the time came, after that tour, he asked me, I ran into him in at his club, and he said, well, what's up, grandson? You need some work? Need a job? And I said, yeah, I'll be able to mow that lawn for you first thing on Monday. And he said, no, man, you can be in the band. I was like, oh, that's cool. All right. Check my Palm Pilot. Yeah, I can do that.
Got space in the calendar?
Yeah.
Because he was seeing you on the tour opening.
Yeah. And it was really funny, too, man, because Prince was real funny style, man. And when it came to, like, when I was working with my band, if he had anything, because he would be there active in our rehearsals, because he wanted to make sure that we were killing. If he wanted to tell the drummer something, he said, Morris, tell your drummer that his tempo is like. I'm like, but he's sitting right there.
As the MD, you are the portal to the rest of the band.
He heard you.
It's a small room.
He's right there, but he would just do it anyway because it's like, I'm talking to you, you can tell it to them.
Right.
It's just funny, but it's that princely thing. Like, wow, he's severe because he's the rock god because he don't even talk to people.
Right.
He just talk to you, and then you channel it over to the. And I just would say, yeah, what he said, you heard it. It was funny because he was really hands-on because he really was concerned about making sure that everybody was at the top level of performance. So he really wanted to, he was involved in making sure that we were cool, and our band was killing, man. We had some good players. He didn't have to do a whole lot, but he just liked to, to see how the process unfolds, and then if we come up with something cool, and then he'd add to it or whatever, But then I think in that process, he was checking us all out,
Right.
And I think
He's always watching.
And I got my big break on his birthday. We were in Berlin, and he liked to have that. We all had heard about the infamous after parties, So we. Like, we gonna finally get a chance to jam. It's like finally our chance, And he called us all up, and he gave us an opportunity to play with him. Some experiences went better than others, and I think what did it for me, what locked him in, is he was playing the club version of Get Off. I just for no reason I just learned it, just like the part itself.
Luckily.
I thought it was cool, and I just learned it, and. Turns out this night he decided he wanted to play. He had dismissed my whole band. Like, he started calling his own cats back up. And when I got ready, he said, okay, MPG, come on up. And then we were all like, oh, man. And we were walking off. He said, Morris, no, you stay.
Wow.
You stay. And I was like, oh, so I got to jam with him and the NPG guys. And we did like the club version of that. And he just kind of gave me a little solo section. And what I did, instead of trying to take this solo and jump off the cliff, I just played the part. Like
Right.
he broke it down and I just hit the part and just locked it in. Everybody else tried to go for it. And you know, they're nervous. And it's like the NPG are intimidated, you know.
Of course.
And everybody jumped
They're
off
thinking
the
it's their
cliff.
moment.
Yeah.
Maybe I just like go
And it's
ham
like,
as
I'ma
hard
go
as
in.
possible. Yeah, I'm gonna
And
go
then
in.
it was like, it didn't work out so great, you know what I mean? And what I did was I just stayed in the pocket, man. I just got the part.
Did
And
justice
when he
to the
broke
song.
it down, I just hit the part. And it just like, and just like locked it in. And I think he said, cool. That's what he later defined as respecting the music. You know what I mean? You know, I'll give you a spot. Just do your thing, you know?
Just do your thing.
You know? So
That's
it was
amazing,
cool.
man. What is the best lesson Prince ever taught you?
That was one of his biggest qualities, is he was really a teacher. One of the ones that popped to mind the quickest is not a mistake until you stop. And it just simply, like, when things happen, and if you do as much as we did, as often as we did, stuff's gonna happen. But how you react is what makes a pro a pro. And it's how you continue to, you know, the show must go on. And he says, basically, it's not a mistake until you stop. A lot of people won't know what was supposed to be there. But if you look like a deer in the headlights, because, you know, I had a keyboard that, like, melted down on me. This Oberheim OB8, which is, like, he liked this thing because he did a lot of the records with it. And it was very unstable. And I remember we were in Sweden, and it just, like, I'm playing, and all of a sudden it just died, and it made a death noise. Like, just melt, and I'm like,
the PA.
yeah, and I just looked
Oh.
over at it like, what the WTF? Like it just died, and it made a sound when it went out. And I just looked, and he was like, he had a towel, he's whipping his towel. He just turns around and looks at me and was like, and just throws the towel at me. So like after the show, you know, when the dreaded office after the show meeting,
Yep.
he said, Morris, what happened? I said, dude, the keyboard just died. It just, it did a death squeal and died. Then I just turned the volume down, but it was just like, what? And he's like, dude, he said, make a show out of it. If it does that, throw it on the ground. I'll buy you a new one. But don't just stand there like a deer in the headlights. Throw it on the ground. It's rock and roll. Bust it. I will get you a new one. And I was like, sweet. But I still got in trouble, so I
course.
had to hand over a couple.
Because you didn't do anything.
And I
So-
was like, yeah.
How did it work with Prince being Prince as musical director, you being band leader? How did that relationship work?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I think anybody that works with Prince, you know, I use the term music director very loosely.
Right.
I would be the MD when he wasn't there. It's like, you know, Captain Kirk and Spock, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's like you're number one after he steps away. But, you know, it wasn't really that much of a Prince, you know, he was the primary cat doing the arrangements.
Right.
And, you know, and I just held down the fort. But what was really cool is he did listen to us creatively. You know, that's one of the things that he said he liked about exchanging musicians so much, because different musicians bring, of course, a different energy to it.
What was Prince pickiest about in the live show?
He hated mistakes. And very much a perfectionist, very much wanting people to always be mindful that, you know, once it's out, it's in the ether. He rarely messed up, you know. It's just like, and he would try things, you know. He'd just jump off the cliff, and it just would work out, you know. It just worked out. But it's like that was kind of a big deal for him. And I mean, even on a smaller setting, like I remember one time, and we were doing one of these shows at his house, and I had a few like dog notes, and I remember after that show, man, he cleaned my clock, man. He was like, hey man, let me just tell you, like 10 or 10,000, you play the same show. You feel me? It's the same show, 10 or 10,000. You know, doesn't matter. Respect the music, period.
I heard there's a story about a hardware store.
Oh my God. Yeah, man, that was some funny mess, man. That was a classic. You know, if they ever do a Prince movie, they gotta have that scene in, because it was, even for me, it was like, it was crazy. He thought that somebody was breaking in the back of the gate at the studio, And he's like, dude, he's like, can you take me to the hardware store? I want to get a chain. And I'm like, what? I want to get a chain. I'm like, I said, for what? And he's like, well, I think somebody's coming in that gate. I said, Francis, there's nobody. You got cameras all back here. There's nobody coming in the gate. He said, will you help me out or not? I said, yeah, I'll help you out. And so I take him to the Ace Hardware, man. And we get in my van. I had like a van that like used to haul all my stuff in.
Yeah.
That was at my house in Minneapolis. And I put him in the van, man, and we go over to Ace. And I said, okay, Prince, it's snowing, man. It's cold. I said, dude, stay in the van. I'll go grab the stuff, and I'll be right back. And he goes, okay. So I get out of the van. I leave it running. And I just go in, and I'm in the aisle, and I'm finding some stuff. I got a piece of chain. The dude's gonna cut me off this chain, and I'm just standing there with the cat. And then all of a sudden, I look by, and then just this cat goes cruising by in these like furry boots and a turtleneck, and I'm like going, "What the?" Like he's in here, and I go to the end of the aisle, and he's gone. And there's all these people just standing around and going like, "Dude, Prince is in the hardware store." They're like, "He's in here," and they're all just frozen. I'm like, "What the?" So he goes down the aisle, so I go back to finish up my thing, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go get him. And so when I'm dealing with the guy, he comes up, and he's got a handful of crap, and he said, can we have this? He's like, I'm like, dude, what? And he's got like a lock, he just found a bunch of crap, and he's just got like he's 12, he's like, can we take this? Like, I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's fine. I'm like, Prince, what did you do with the car? He said, well, it's running, it's out there. I'm like, dude, you can't listen. You can't leave the car running. They'll steal it. He says, can't ask nobody to steal it. I was like, oh my God, dude, let's get out of here, man. So we get to the counter, and man, everybody's freaking out. You know, nobody's saying anything, but they're just all standing around like, dude, Prince is in here like with a bunch of hardware, chilling. And the guy at the counter, he owns the place, and he's like, he sees Prince and like, hey man, my dad said you used to come in the store like back in the day, and Prince was like, okay. He was like, oh, okay. And so we get the stuff. Sure enough, we get outside, man, the car is just sitting there running. There's just smoke coming out of the pipe. I'm like, oh my God.
Just left it.
Dude, I'm just like, just the keys in, just chilling, the van's just running, there's just smoke coming out, I'm like, wow. So he said, I told you.
No one steal it, they know it was ours.
Yeah, it's funny.
What was the best time playing with Prince, and what was the worst time?
Oh man. Well, I mean, dude, there's so many best times. I mean, you can point to the highlights. I mean, the Super Bowl was cool in 2007. I mean, the Wembley, for me, when I really knew, like, man, this is it, is Wembley Stadium. Mm-hmm. Because when you walk into Wembley, at least the old stadium, I played at the old Wembley Stadium, and back in like 93 or 94, somewhere back in there. And dude, when you walk through the hall, there's these giant pictures of like all of the, Madonna and like Bruce Springsteen, like like all of them, like the Beatles and people, like you walking, and as you walk by, it's this giant picture, like, dang, ooh wee. And then there's Michael Jackson, ooh wee. It's like, this is the big boys right here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so when you're walking and you're walking through that, it was that feeling like, dang man, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. And then when you get on the stage and you see just a sea of humanity, like, as far as you can see, it's bodies and heads. And then when it starts getting dark, you don't see the end of it anymore. It's just like, it goes until like the ocean is like a horizon, and it just disappears into that. Because when you're on the stage and the lights, you just see a sea of humanity. I didn't see the edges, I just saw people.
Yeah.
And it was crazy, man. I mean, and it's like, as a small town kid from Arkansas, man, I'm at Wembley, man. I'm like, it's 90,000 people in here. Even the small moments, like some of the house parties, man, it was just like, it still is magical. Even though it was a small audience, it's just like the vibe was so cool, and what you were doing, the music was so cool. And so, to me, the worst shows is whenever something would go wrong, whenever something would mess up, and I had a lot of technical stuff that I was doing, like stuff nobody would do. Before, the kind of things we did, nobody did it the way we did, because Prince didn't like to play the tape or anything.
Right.
So we had to play samples in real time, and some of my samples would be 30 seconds long. Like, I had to hit it, hold a sustain pedal, play my parts.
Right.
If it started getting off time, I had to pitch it in the hole where you wouldn't hear the pitch go.
There's never click.
And so I had to go, bam, to hit the pitch wheel to speed it up or slow it down if I hit it too early or too late.
Wow.
I remember having some cats from Michael Jackson and for some other cats like when they started like, how are you doing that?
Yeah, you really doing that?
And they're like, are you crazy? Like, why would you do that? And of course, man, Paisley, some historic shows that he did at Paisley Park, man. It's just.
Like what? Give me an example of one.
Oh man, I mean, everybody would be there, just depending on the night. Yeah, Miles Davis. You got I remember Dan Rather was there chilling one night. Like, Dan Rather, what you doing, man? And he was like, man, he had a turtleneck on, talking to the folks, like, how you doing? right. And I'm like, look at Dan Rather just kicking it, man.
That happened to be you.
Just grooving, and there was so many celebrities and like musicians that would come. I remember jamming with like No Doubt, they'd come, and of course Lenny would come a lot. So Lenny was cool, and just anybody that would come. I remember one of the coolest nights, man, which I got kind of tore up on this night. D'Angelo and Quest came, and it was just me, Prince, D'Angelo, Quest, and Kurt, and. We did a concert for nobody. There was nobody there. We had the sound stage, and D'Angelo had just had a concert, and it was the Prince request your presence, and they came down. They brought the tour bus, and they came in and jammed until like the sun was coming out.
That's so dope.
And it was crazy. We played the song, one of my favorites, "Question to You," and D'Angelo played keys on it. And I'm telling you, it's like D'Angelo was waiting for that moment all his life. He played the keyboards on that song and played it lick for lick. Prince came over to me, looked at me like, well, like...
You gonna do that too?
You hear what he just did? Well, that was amazing. Yes, just like the record. Do you play it like the record, Morris? D'Angelo was not in the band and he played it just like the record. Like... Thanks, D'Angelo. That was really great what you just did.
Appreciate you stepping into our house and doing that. Yeah.
But it was dope. I mean, he killed it, man. I mean, and it was like one of those moments, man. It's like there's too many to number because you got Whitney and all of these people at the house, and they just Erykah Badu and all these folks, man. It's like everybody loves Prince,
Mm-hmm.
And so they was like kids. They humbled to be there, and they come and get it in,
Right.
And it was crazy. It just like years and years of that, man. So it's really difficult to name any particular moments like that, man. And for me, I always never lost that whole kid-like vibe of just being like, these are my heroes, a lot of these folks.
Right.
Especially, some of the ones who've been in the game like Stevie and Herbie and people like that, Maceo, that like I've been knowing since I was a kid, know. And then to finally be jamming with them, And then you got the new artists like Alicia Keys and Beyonce and all the other folks that would come through, and it's like, you can't.
It's everybody.
I mean, bro, it's just like you just take the roller coaster ride. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And it's like you just enjoy it. The only way you knew you had a day off is when it was already over.
Right.
It was already done. That's when you knew you had it. Like, okay.
Yeah. So how do you plan your outside life?
You don't.
You don't.
When you do, you usually lose.
Right.
Like I can't count how many flights I burned because I'm like, I'm gonna go home this weekend. I'm gonna do this, and Prince would be like, yeah, nope, we're gonna do this.
And you were with him 20 years.
Yeah, since '92 up to 2012, and then I took a little time in the middle to go do some dates with Maceo.
Yeah.
And but yeah, 92 to 2012.
Wow, man. Oh man, that's amazing. Well, thank you for everything. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being of service. Thank you for being Mr. Hayes.
Well, brother, that's all I know to be.
Keep staying that
I'm
way.
gonna stay with it. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Oh, my pleasure.
Absolutely.